Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. It's good to talk, and that's why Kevin McCluskey is on the show tonight. He's dialing in all the way from Hungary, and we're here to talk, of course, about the Celtic game this evening in the Champions League, where we will face RB Leipzig. Kevin, the teams are out. How are you feeling? First of all, how are you feeling about tonight, mate?
Well, first of all, actually, I was waiting for Bob Hoskins to appear there just when you said it's good to talk. Going back to the old BT adverts. But aside
Long
from
Good
being
Friday. I
disappointed,
enjoyed that.
I
Bobby
was just going to
Hoskins,
say,
Roger Rabbit.
just
I
going to,
mean, oh, brilliant.
oh,
Goes on and on.
classics. I was just going to say it. Apart from being disappointed that the man from the Long Good Friday is not appearing on a Celtic State of Mind, I'm doing quite well. And I'm very much looking forward to this game tonight. I think it's
Yes.
going to be, well, it's got the potential to be a classic European night under the lights at Celtic Park. My only disappointment is I can't be there. But otherwise, I'm massively looking forward to it. I think we've learned lessons. I don't want to speak too soon, but it seems like we've learned lessons from the Dortmund game with the performance we put in against Atalanta. The
Hmm.
game at the weekend was just a phenomenal performance. So again, it gives you big confidence going into a game like this. I look at our team, pretty settled, pretty solid. I'm excited for this one. I know it will be a difficult game. I'm not going to underestimate Leipzig and the threat that they can pose us. I'm very much not interested in the fact that they've lost all three games so far. You look at the sides they've played, Atletico Madrid, Juve, and Liverpool, like big games, and they've lost them all just by a single goal. So, under no illusions, but confident about it that we can get a positive result.
Well, this is the thing we were talking about in the 12:30 bulletin, Kev. It was all about looking at the games we'd already played. You know, the swashbuckling performance that opened our campaign against Slovan Bratislava, where we win a meaningful Champions League game at home, and we're all feeling buoyant. And it's part of a running form actually, where you're looking at the Celtic side thinking, "Wow, we've really hit a stride here." And then we go into that match against Borussia Dortmund and are completely humbled. And there's a lot of criticism flying around Brendan Rodgers' decision to more or less, face the team the same way we faced St Johnstone a few days previously, where we won 6-0 and we went in fully confident. We followed that up with a defensive masterclass against Atalanta. Brian earlier on was saying, we probably just played the system better against Atalanta. I think there's an element of truth in that, but we were too open against Dortmund. They just picked us apart, and very early in the game, it got too far away from us. And the chat today, this afternoon, was all around, okay, we've seen the good and the bad of a Celtic performance in Europe this season. And where are we going to gauge it? Where are we going to pitch it going into this game? Leipzig, obviously, aren't doing too well in the group, but let us not be under any illusion that this is a right good side, very strong, doing particularly well, obviously, in the Bundesliga. They just got a narrow defeat at the weekend by Borussia Dortmund, who annihilated us, let's be honest. So going into it, I think the big question, it might not be as cut and dry as this, is so which approach do we choose then? Because I think even in defeat, if you can take something from it, Kev, and I know it sounds cliched, but if you can take some kind of learning from that Dortmund game, if you can, and you can then implement it against the next proper side that we play. I think we did that against Atalanta. They're a quality team. What style of Celtic are we going to see tonight, do you think?
Yeah, I'm hoping we see a style that's somewhere in between what we saw against Dortmund and against Atalanta. Uh, Obviously, we covered the game against Dortmund, and I think we were all, me in particular, quite scathing about the way we went out and played in that game because we were, in my opinion, we were pretty naive because we didn't change anything up to go more defensive, and you could see the game was lost. But I suppose by continuing to play the way that we did, we learned that we can't afford to do that. We're not good enough to do it at this level. But like you say, the biggest lesson then was we went into the Atalanta game and we corrected quite a lot of those wrongs. We were a lot more defensive and pragmatic. It was more or less the same system that we played, but we just played it better. We were just that wee bit more compact about the way we were playing, the things that we were making, the mistakes we were making in Dortmund, we didn't make in Atalanta. We just showed that up big time. Um, but coming into any game at home with 60,000 Celtic fans, there is a pressure and an expectation on us that we're going to go out and attack and
Hmm.
take the game to Leipzig. I think we should. I think we have to because we're the home team and we should have that initiative behind us. But if we can kind of curb the little bit of the gung ho that we showed against Dortmund, marry that with a bit of the pragmatism that we had against Atalanta, and just find some sort of beautiful, sweet common ground in between those two performances, then I mean that's what I'd like to see. And I think if we can do that, then we stand a pretty good chance of taking something from the game. So somewhere in between those two performances, a wee bit bolder than we did against Atalanta, but not as bold as Dortmund, and I'll be happy. And even if we don't get the result, if we put in that level of performance or that kind of performance, like you say, we can learn things from it and we can gauge exactly where we stand in terms of this new Champions League format and this level of opposition.
Well, it is an interesting format. This is the one thing coming into this season, Kevin. We were all talking about your thoughts on it. And I think until you actually see it live and working in front of you in Technicolor, it's difficult to gauge whether or not you're going to enjoy it. We're looking at some fixtures coming in, some scorelines coming in just now, where PSV have beat Girona 4-0, and Dynamo Zagreb have defeated Slovan Bratislava 4-1 away. Now, I remember when we were looking at the fixtures, and obviously they're two teams that are in our group. Not in our group, but they're obviously teams we're going to be facing. We beat Slovan Bratislava 5-1 at home. And I think a lot of us were looking at Dynamo Zagreb, and we were kind of looking at them maybe unfairly as a team that we could get 3 points even away from home against. But with the next wave of fixtures, you start looking at it thinking, and again, that we always say it, there isn't an easy game in Europe, but you can't underestimate any of these teams, Kev. I mean, there's Dynamo Zagreb going out there tonight and getting a cracking result. Where does that leave them in the table? Because obviously we're going to be looking at this table all night now. But Zagreb have obviously improved from match day one. But it has been an interesting kind of journey watching this new format unfold in front of us, Kev. And it's enjoyable as well, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So that result tonight, I've just checked, it moves Zagreb up to 10th. But it's false in a way because there's only been 2 games of match day 4 played so far.
Mm-hmm.
So come the end of the night, it'll be interesting. Or the end of tomorrow night, it'll be interesting. But I'm going to double check back and see. They're sitting on 7 points from the 4 games, and that's after getting thumped 9-2 in the first game. So that's a pretty decent return for them. And again, I'm going to hold my hands up and say I was one of those folk that looked at the Zagreb game, even away from home, and thought that was a chance for us to get that rare away victory. I still do. I still think we can go there. I watched that game tonight, most of it against Slovan, and Zagreb were impressive, but Bratislava were poor. I think they scored after 5 minutes, and that was it. They peaked at that point. Zagreb just picked them off whenever they could, but there's weaknesses in that team that I think we can exploit. But they've got 7 points from the 4 games. They're sitting, like you say, 10th place at the moment. It's all going well for them. They're basically probably looking at it going one more win, and that's them guaranteed at least the playoff game. And they'll probably look at the game against us and think that could be the game that they can win. So I think it's a really interesting format. And again, if we can win tonight, then that puts us in a tremendous position as well. So
It really does.
I
See,
think
when you
that,
start looking at it,
yeah,
Kev, that would take us on to 7 points. We'd be on equal points with
yeah,
Zagreb. I mean, it's interesting how they got an absolute humping, obviously, and so did we against Dortmund. But our goal difference is sitting at -2. No great shakes, but it just shows you how you can pull that back with a few decent results as well. The goal difference when you've been absolutely humbled. But you're right. We were talking about 10 points, weren't we? So if Celtic can do, and I'm not saying the unthinkable tonight, but if Celtic can pull out a famous victory this evening and they're sitting on 7 points, you're then thinking, wow, one more win from the last 4 games, and we might be in there, in the mix for a playoff place. So that shows you how big a win would be tonight, Kev.
yeah, it's absolutely massive. I'm just trying to look through what all the other games are in the order because we win tonight. Well, say we win tonight, that's 7 points. Club Brugge at home is the next game. It's another winnable match. Could put us into the 10. We've got Young Boys of Bern in the last home game. We've got Zagreb away from home. It's not one of those ones where you want to get carried away with yourself. But if we were to win tonight, that gives us huge momentum. And you can start to dream the undreamable dream that we might get a top 8. Never mind
Oh,
top
wow.
16 or
Imagine
whatever
that.
it is. I mean, it's not out with the realms of possibility if we can win tonight and build up that momentum and win against Bruges in the next game as well. We've got a fairly favourable run of games. This is the big one. Win it tonight, or at least avoid defeat. And I think we put ourselves in a really strong place for the remaining games.
You know, and the flip of that, Kev, would be that you get a draw this evening and you're sitting on 5 points, and some of these clubs who are currently sitting underneath us leapfrog us, and then it looks on the league table side of things that we're not doing so well. But that would be unfair to say that, because if you come away from tonight's game with a draw, I think it's a decent result. Because I don't think it's a game that you're looking at and thinking we're going to take 3 points from this evening. Obviously, the form that we're in would suggest that we're in great shape. And the team line, before we get to some of the comments that are coming through, the team lines have been released. So let's have a wee look at Celtic's starting 11 first of all. I'm pretty sure most, if not all of you tuning in tonight have already seen this, but Schmeichel's in goals. Alistair Johnston at right back, with Greg Taylor returning to the left back berth. Carter Vickers and Trusty centre half pairing, with McGregor, Engels and Hatate in the midfield. Kuhn, Maeda and Kyogo up top, and a bench of Sinisalo, Scales, Palmer, Ida Valle, Yang, McKeown, Nawrocki, Bernardo, Forrest, Ralston and Welsh. Obviously, the big talking point, I would suggest, is at left back. Going into tonight's game, I don't think young Bailly has done anything to be dropped as such. But at 12:30, when we were talking about the game tonight, we kind of got to the point, Kev, where it wouldn't have surprised us either way. You know, if Taylor started, you're thinking, well, I can see that with the experience that he has at this level. He's played, at this level for Celtic previously. I get it. He's now match fit. So it's not a massive surprise for me, but would you have put Taylor in, or do you think Bailly deserved to keep the number 3 shirt?
I think this one all depends on how Brendan wants us to play. It's a cop-out of an answer because it's not giving you my opinion as such. Because I agree, I don't think Bailly's done anything to merit being dropped from the team, and I don't think he has been dropped. I think he's just been taken out for a tactical reason, probably, which is Taylor brings that wee bit more stability, I think, to the back line. And he is very important if we want to play someone as an inverted fullback. He does that, so he adds a wee bit more kind of depth, and that can be the second pivot alongside Carl in the midfield if we want to go that kind of way. So I think that's why he's done it. I think it was maybe telling that Brendan brought Taylor on at the end of the cup semi-final at the weekend, and again the reasoning for that was he just wanted someone that was a bit more steady in the team at that point, and we were like 4, 5, 6-0 up, whatever it was when he brought Taylor on. So the reasoning of steadiness doesn't really make sense. We are pretty steady in the lead at that point. So I think that was probably a wee nod towards tonight and wanting to end with kind of the back four that he wanted to start tonight. So, you know, Bailly can probably feel hard done by that he hasn't done anything to deserve being taken out of the team. But Taylor comes in. For me, it's a tactical change. And his experience in a night like this could be huge as well. So, yeah, it's a great position for us to be in. And I think this is the one where we want to be on every position in the park, where we've got 2 players of basically equal ability, but just maybe bring different qualities. And you can bring one in for a certain game and bring the other one in for the other. Mm-hmm. Just like we can do up top when we want to play a more physical centre forward, we've got Adam Ida. If we want somebody quick to get in behind, we've got Kyogo. So I actually think it's a real benefit and plus that we can do it. And we can now afford to rest Taylor for games, we can afford to rest Bailly, and we know that we're not dropping the standard of that starting 11.
When I heard Brendan talking after the game against Aberdeen, Kev, it made me wonder. And although I would have started with Bailly, it made me wonder if Taylor would come back in. And I think the word they used was tidy. He wanted things to be tidied up. And that's what.
Rather than steady.
Aye, so Greg Taylor came in. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean? Does that mean Bailly's giving away too many balls? Is it all about possession? And on a night like tonight, you can be punished. I mean, listen, I didn't think Taylor was great against Dortmund. No one was great against Dortmund, but he was hooked at half time, wasn't he? And Bailly comes in, and him and Hatate for me in the second half probably shone brighter than most because it was a rotten night of football for Celtic fans anyway. So yeah, that's a big talking point, but I don't think I have any concerns. I really don't. And another aspect of this, right? That area of the park where it's the left back and the left side, the centre half, where we have been targeted. It's one of these things where any team that's watching Celtic has identified that as a so-called weak link and they've targeted it in the past. Scales brought him out, and there's a lot of comments coming in about Liam Scales and how hard done by he might be feeling at the moment. Scales dropped him out and being replaced by Trusty has completely changed that dynamic. I no longer see that as being a weak area of the park for Celtic. I'm not going to say he's carrying Greg Taylor. I'm not saying that at all. But I just think when you've got that strong centre half on the left-hand side, Kev, the left back and their physical disadvantage, and let's be honest, he does have a physical disadvantage with his height and the fact that he can't get the high balls, etc., isn't as much of a problem. Greg Taylor, I'm talking about. It's not as much of a problem when you've got Austin Trusty in there. Liam Scales, for all his height and his brilliant positioning and all these things that we've given him plaudits for, has lost his jersey at the moment, Kev. And it is a talking point. And we spoke about it today at 12:30 because it doesn't feel like an unceremonious dropping of Liam Scales. It just seems to have happened gradually. And you look at the first game against Dundee. I think he dropped out. You're looking, that's not really a dropping, because we should be able to beat Dundee. You're looking at Motherwell. You're thinking we should be able to beat these teams. Then it extends to another game because let's not forget how superb Scales and Trusty were against Atalanta. And on that night where it pretty much was, wave and wave of attack, and they defended it. They defended it really, really well. I've got to say, I feel a bit sorry for Scales. I don't think he's had a particularly bad game that you think, right, that's the reason he got dropped, or even a run of bad games. He absolutely hasn't. But Carter Vickers comes back into the side, Kev, if he's fit, he comes in on nights like tonight. And Trusty has played so well, hasn't he? So, again, that's another flip of a coin for me when you're looking at a starting 11, either or, and I'd have been going into this game pretty happy.
Yeah, it's a strange one because I reckon Scales has probably been our best centre half over the last 18 months, which is almost a ridiculous thing to say one way because he's got Carter Vickers next to him, who previously had been the best centre half in Scotland in the 2 years before. But over the last 18 months, I think Scales has grown into the Celtic jersey. He'd become the number one centre back at the club, and it does feel harsh on him that he's no longer in the team.
Yeah.
That said, for those last 18 months as well, we've probably all been on this podcast saying we need to upgrade at left centre back. Mm-hmm. There was one area that we all thought we still needed to upgrade in. And part of it is the weakness that Taylor brings at left back. Because Taylor's not going to grow any taller. He's 5'8" or whatever it is. He's not going to become 6 foot overnight. There's no magic beans that he's going to take that's going to, make that happen to him.
So we've tried everything, Kev, haven't we? Us guys that just never attained that 6 foot status, there's just nothing you can do. You could start wearing platforms, but we've seen what happens if you try and kick a ball with a pair of Tom Fords on. Brendan Rodgers obviously slipping on his backside, but no, this is the one thing you can't give him a hard time for it. He's small. And he's not got that leap that, other small players. Henrik Larsson wasn't particularly tall, Kev, but he had a leap on him that was unbelievable. Taylor doesn't have it.
No, he doesn't. And he never will because you've kind of either got that or you've not. And he doesn't. It's a weak point to his game. And he needs a strong left centre back next to him to cover for him. And Scales has done a very good job at doing that. But there's a reason we've signed Austin Trusty at £6 million, and it wasn't to sit him on the bench in the Scottish Premiership. It was for him to come in and become the centre-back partner to Carter Vickers, I think. And he'd done fairly well as the right centre-back alongside Scales, but you see a big difference when he goes to left centre-back. He brings even more balance, I think, than Scales does. He brings a wee bit more assurance because he is taller, more physical. He's quicker, he covers the ground pretty well. And I'm sorry for Liam Scales, but you do feel, I personally anyway, feel a little bit more comfortable already with Trusty in there, especially if he's got Carter Vickers next to him because he's just an absolute colossus. So, yeah, Scales, like Baye's, done nothing really to merit being left out of the team. but the guy that's come in seems to have been an upgrade on him already. And we'll probably see again. Brendan's managed this really well because he's done it at the right time. He's kind of just slowly introduced Trusty into the team.
Mm-hmm.
He's given a very valid reason for playing Trusty and Carter Vickers at the weekend. He's identified the pace of the Aberdeen front line, and Trusty being the one that, the quickest centre back, so that's why he stays in there. And then if Trusty continues to play well, there then becomes no reason to take him out of the team. And Scales, unfortunately, is the man that suffers from that. But again, you then look to that bench and you go, if we're struggling defensively, we've got Liam Scales to come off the bench, and that's now no longer such a terrible prospect as it might have been 18 months ago or 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's a really good point, because you couldn't argue with looking at the league game against Aberdeen. You couldn't really argue with saying, well, actually, we were, for me, Aberdeen pinpointed Liam Scales in that game. And, they were able to get in between the two centre halves. He doesn't have that same turn of pace to get back if they manage to get in behind. So you're right. The justification was there, Kev, to make that change. And then in the big game, when the Aberdeen game come around, you think to yourself, you can justify that. But Trusty played so well that you're not dropping him. Carter Vickers is like Callum McGregor for me. He's on the team sheet. He's like Kasper Schmeichel. He's on the team sheet. There's not many players like that, because a lot of the other players, it comes down to form. Comes down to the form. I mean, we've seen how wingers can be on a rich vein of form and then obviously drop off. We've seen it with strikers. But in terms of guys that are always going to play, Carter Vickers is one of them. So it's Carter Vickers plus another. And then you manage his game time and his fitness during the season by giving him some rests. Let us know what you think in the comments section. We're not far from kick-off, and like Kevin, I wish I was at the game. But we're here. And this is San Fran Celtic. I'm guessing you are based in San Francisco. Got to love Celtic TV Zero Match Build-Up. We're hearing a lot of this. We're hearing a lot of this from our contributors who live overseas. Kev, you're in Hungary, of course, that they're disappointed with the kind of product that they're paying for. I mean, very soon, hopefully, Acsom will be sitting in a studio covering these games prior to the match going out. You'll need to dial in, though, mate, unless you fly over from Hungary. And Joe Hamilton's...
You're not going to pay my airfare to come over?
Obviously. Joe Hamilton's agreeing with San Fran. Absolute shambles, he says. A lot of people disagreeing with Taylor coming back into the side. Edward McCallum should have kept Bailly in. And there's a rumour flying about, and I don't know what basis that it has, but quite a few people are saying it in the comments. Apparently, Barca are about to recall him. You know what? Even if they were to recall him, and Brendan Rodgers thought that tonight he'd be the best option, I bet Brendan would have played him. I don't think he would have cared either way. Yeah. Because someone mentioned earlier on, and we spoke about this, that his opposing manager this evening had made a suggestion in relation to Ida, and the fact that we lacked height up top and all this kind of stuff. And I said, you know what? Mind games. Brendan will still go with Kyogo. And that's exactly what he did. Forever and ever Celtic, Kyogo rather than Ida. Wonder if that means a more offensive style, Ida inclusion more akin to our style versus Atalanta. We spoke about that again today, Kevin. I actually think Ida done a great job. It was like no frills. I mean, it's one of the games where it's all about the running, it's closing down, you're not getting much of the ball. Thankless task. I think Kyogo can do that, and I think Maeda can do it as well. So I don't think it depends on how your game plan is going to be. Kyogo might play that role. I don't see him playing that role at Celtic Park, but in the future, I can see him, fulfilling that role effectively.
Yeah, I mean, to go to the Atalanta game, I thought Ida was really good. I think he was really impressive in that game. Like you say, he did the thankless work. So normally you'll notice a centre forward because he's in the box, he's getting chances, and he's scoring goals. Against Atalanta, what we needed was somebody that was going to drop deep and win those aerial balls that Schmeichel was popping forward up to the halfway line and try and hold the ball up and bring players in. It was a really difficult job he had to do that night, but I thought he done it pretty well, and he ran himself into the ground. I've no doubts that Kyogo could do something similar. It's not going to be high balls up to him because he's also not the tallest lad in the world, but Kyogo's capable of dropping deep. He's capable of holding the ball up to feet and bringing players in. And if we want to play a style where he does that, and you've got Engels and Hatate running beyond him, I think he's more than capable of doing it. He did it quite a bit last season, actually, I think. So we can definitely do that. And if you want a centre forward or a forward type player, to go and run his hind legs off for you. There's no one better in world football than Dyson Maeda. I can't remember, was it the second goal maybe at the weekend where he wins the ball in the halfway, midway inside our own half with that little flick, and then he does basically runs half the length of the park just to make sure that he's getting that ball and we're creating that chance. And he just does those things all every single week.
Yeah.
He's up and in the park. So yeah, I think we're kind of blessed and lucky in a way that whatever three play up front, whether it's because I'll include Kuhn in this as well. I think he works hard for us. He's kind of an underrated part of his game.
It
I think he's
is.
got big work rate and work ethic about him. So whatever three out of Kuhn, Maeda, Kyogo, Ida, even Forrest, if you put him in there, we've got forward players that will work hard, that will put in a shift for you, but are also creative and skillful and good movement and can offer us, a little bit of everything that we need, depending on the game. So again, the three that we've gone for the night, Kuhn, Maeda, Kyogo, there's pace, there's movement, there's ability to hold the ball up in the deck. So if they're on form, and you've no reason to suspect that they won't be, you've got to have a wee bit of confidence that you get a break
You've
of the
got to.
ball and things could go our way.
Yeah, we can do it. This is the big thing. It's not as though we can put out a defensive masterclass, but we have nothing else. We have that flair and creativity up top, and there's a clinical edge to some of these guys. I think Kuhn's got it at the moment. He seems to be in that zone, Kev. He's in a great vein of form. That Maeda run that you're talking about, the second goal scored, of course, by Kyogo. It was like everything. It was everything we've ever seen in Maeda in one move, right? So it shows you how great he is with his defensive work. Because, like you say, he gets right back in. Kuhn was taken out in that move as well. You'll remember he was completely taken out. And then what happens is he then shows you the pace that he's got. Because what a run from the halfway line. What a run. So he shows you that element of his game. But if you actually watch it, there's an interesting moment where he kind of disarms the defender, but it was a bad touch. And then he's had to control it. And the defender keeps running. The goalie's off balance. And we've seen wee bits of that in his game. And then it's the unselfish nature of laying on Kyogo. So I think we've seen everything there. We made it. He was sensational at the weekend. He was absolutely brilliant at the weekend. As he had a few months ago, Kev, he's a player that, when fit, he is so important to Celtic.
Absolutely. And that little miss touch that he takes that unsettles the defender is also just typical of Maeda.
Yeah.
Because we've seen it so many times. He gets into the perfect position and then fluffs his lines. Or Kyogo won't even pass the ball to him if he's the man that's running through because he's always got the confidence in him. So he takes that touch and you do immediately think he's messed it up. But he's got that unpredictability about him as well. He recovers the situation so quickly, almost like he meant the mistouch and sets up Kyogo. Yeah, so that was the Maeda microcosm.
It was one move that shows you everything that we've seen over the last couple of seasons with Dyson Maeda. A couple of guys tonight, I think, yeah, it's a big night for everybody, of course, Kev, but a few players I'm looking at and I'm thinking big performance would be required for a couple of different reasons. And I think Engels shook off a few of the critics at the weekend. I thought it was a really mature display by Arnie Engels. But he's a player along with Kuhn who knows the German game, and Kuhn obviously has spent some of his formative years at tonight's club, Leipzig. He's played there. So he has gone into the Dortmund game and been really poor. And I think that, there must be something that's like a point to prove in respect to Kuhn particularly, but obviously Arnie Engels against teams that he was playing against last season. Against Kuhn running riot tonight, by the way, because I just think he's got that confidence. It's almost as if he's never having to second guess anything. Everything's just working for him. He's shown how effective he is at cutting inside, creating chances. He loves a shot. But again, defensively, Kev, he's got everything to his game.
He does, yeah, and he is night and day compared to the player that ended last season. And we all know the reasons why he didn't have the best of starts to his Celtic career, where he was coming in with his dental issues, and it all just affected him. He lost so much weight, and he wasn't quite the player. And sometimes it just takes a wee bit of time for players to settle into a new environment, and he didn't get that time because it's Celtic, and you don't get it. But this season, he's absolutely kicked on. everything you want from a winger at the moment, he's got, and he's showing it. I think the stat is now a goal or an assist every 57 minutes he's been on the park this season, which is unreal. Like there can be, I don't care what league you're playing in, there can be few players in world football that've got a better record than that at the moment. Right? That is just unreal.
I'd like to
It's,
see. I'd like
it's
to see,
fantastic.
Kev. Honestly,
Yeah,
European or world football. Who's got a better stat than that? Every 57
yeah,
minutes. That's sensational. It's
it's
incredible.
unreal. So yeah, he's absolutely flying. He's on form. He's got everything about his game. He wants to get back in the German team. We spoke about this before the Dortmund game. He wants to get back into the national team for the first time. Playing against a German team, what better chances he got to go and prove to the German public how good a player he is. If he can go in and put in a performance tonight, it's great for him personally, and it'll be great for us as a club as well, because obviously we'll reap the benefits.
Right, prediction time. Kevin, I will be happy with a 1-1. I think, depending on how the night goes, we are capable of winning it. I know that we are capable. I'm going to say 1-1. And at the end of the night, I won't be too disappointed if we actually drop a few places in the league positions, because I think it would be a really good result.
Yeah, absolutely. Take a 1-1 right now. I think it'll be 2-2 for some reason. I think there will be goals in it. Um, but maybe we get the two and they only get the one. I'll be happy with that.
Oh, definitely. Let's go and join the action. We'll be back, of course, at halftime. We might even have another couple of bodies joining us. But thanks, everybody, for getting involved. Enjoy the first half. And thanks, Kevin McCluskey, once again, for joining me on a Celtic State of Mind.
Right, cheers.